first ever, the maiden voyage, episode 1 of the Help a Teacher YouTube Live. And I am fired up. My brother from another mother on the show today and his lovely wife. Here's the thing. CJ Reynolds on the show tonight. His book, and there's a lot I want to talk about his book. Teach Your Class Off is out. It's one of my faves. Teach Your Class Off, the real rap guide to teaching. And, here's what I love about it is because this thing is raw. It is real. And it's not like some dude with a bow tie that hasn't seen the inside of a public school classroom in the last 30 years wrote this thing. This is real teaching, real kids. And I love it. We're going to talk about that, talk about heading back this year and what that might look like and what it might not look like. We're going to dig into it. But here's also the super cool thing about it all is finally we get to meet behind the whole CJ Reynolds thing. We get to meet the brains behind the operation, the brains, the beauty, the brawn, all of it that actually fuels this project. We get to meet Jen with an I, and we're going to see what this whole thing's about. She's awesome. And here we go, man. Let's spend some time together, getting to know these folks, and let's learn a little bit. Let's laugh a little bit, and we are going to have some fun. What do you think, man? How's it going?
Action. What's up, man? It's going great.
Good. Hey, so look at this, the debut episode, and we get twice as nice for your money. It's date night at the Reynolds house, and they get the young couples getting wild. And so let me ask you real quick. So you guys, let's dig into the romance of it all. You guys have been together for how long?
25.
A long time.
25 years.
25.
Yep.
Okay.
Senior high school.
We're not married that long.
No.
Okay. So you guys knew each other in high school.
So yeah, I was in my senior year. I met her. She was what? No, she was in 10th grade. I was a senior. And then it's just like it never was planned that way. It was just kind of like just kept going, and then it was like, here we are, 25 years later. And
is that how you felt? You were just like, might as well get married.
I mean, at some point,
is that how you felt? Gee, thanks.
Everyone just we were married when we got married. So
very true.
Yeah, man. So it's awesome.
All right. So it sounds like it was much like me and my wife. So it was kind of like, everybody left high school, they went to college, got jobs, joined the army, and the next thing we know, well, I guess it's us. We were like the last two left over. And it's kind of like marriage by default. There's no other options. So we tied the knot, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, we waited like my brother called it the decade of love. It was like 9 years before I proposed, but it was a tumultuous 9 years. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to get married. I wanted to be like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction and just like walk the earth. But then when you go through so much life together, it's kind of hard to just call it quits. And plus it's a lot of work, man, to stay together for that long. So now I swear, like I wouldn't like when, my wife will tease me, like if someone says, if we're at a bar and someone looks at me the wrong way, and I'm like, dude, this is like, there's no temptation. Like, this is too much work. This is like, you worked your whole life for 6-pack abs and then someone gives you a Dorito. Nah, bro, I'm not eating your Dorito. Like, I got 6-pack abs here. So that, and it's just like, I literally could not like figure out a better marriage than the one that I have. Like, that's how good it is. So yeah, true.
That's amazing. And here's what I know is in, being teachers and being in public school, like that having that is so important because just emotionally, this job is so intense and so hard. And there's such highs and lows and just moments of euphoria, the moments of disappointment, but having that stable thing in your life is absolutely critical.
Yeah, 100%. Especially someone that knows, like, when we still have students that come over now. And my wife is like, great. Like, they'll come over. We have kids that come over and just hang with my wife. The other night we had a student come over. She was just turning 27. And she wanted to do 27 shots with 27 people in the week leading up to her birthday. And so she hit me up and she was like, would you do this? And I'm like, you're 27. Like, you're like well-grown person. But I wasn't home. So she always just like hangs with my wife, and they like make food together. And this is always happening.
This is Romina from the forward of
yeah, she wrote the forward of the book. So
yeah, I read that.
Probably just as close with me now as
100%, if not
probably more so. We talk
she's
about all
gotten
kinds
older.
of, adults.
But that you need someone that's
things.
going to understand that. That's not going to get upset about that. That's not going to get upset about long hours or coming home and like being upset or, stuff going on at school. So you need that counterpart to go through that stuff with.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that that's what your career has come to is like, yeah, the CJ teacher, yeah, he's okay, but his wife is awesome.
Yeah, I'll take it, man. I'll take it. I'll be Keith Richards. Go ahead.
It's really funny and strange, but I love it, especially Romina. I love Romina. She's our family, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, it's I know in the work I do with teachers across the nation, we talk in the workshop and, we have these heavy conversations. And that is one of the challenges that they have is in so many of their marriages and their relationships. If their spouse isn't a teacher, it's very different because these teachers are in the classroom and they deeply love their kids. But if they have a relationship where their just spouse kind of knows of their kids, sort of knows a little bit of it, man, it's so hard for them because when they come home and share those moments and share the stories and share the failures and the triumphs, and to have a spouse just kind of staring at them, politely with a smile, but they just don't get it. And I know that's super hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I feel like it's shared joy too, right? Like when we had a trip, I don't know, last year, we were in New York City for the day. I was coming home. I needed to relieve my babies. So Romina was actually babysitting our kids. So I needed to drop my wife off and my boys that were in the car with me. It's like these 3 giant kids in the back of my car. They're like, yo, Reynolds, like, can we come in your house real quick? And they're all seniors, like getting ready to graduate. I was like, yeah, for sure, man. Like, just tell your parents that like we have to drop my wife off real quick. We come in and then like the next thing you know, they're like playing Fortnite with my son. And then it's like they're eating leftover pizza, but it's like someone that will welcome that. And then when my wife knows those kids and then it's those shared stories, like when I talk about how so-and-so got into college or so-and-so is going through a breakup, you can actually talk about these people because they're closer to your friend. I mean, by the time they're seniors, they're closer to your friends than they are your students at that point. And you can't trade that, man, but it's got to be shared if you're going to do it like that.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is if you're a teacher's spouse, I think your spouse that's the teacher really needs to share those stories and bring you in and make it a part of it so that you can love those kids and kind of understand the depth of the job, because it's a lot. It's a hard job, and if your spouse doesn't get that or understand that or get to know the students in some way, it's going to be difficult because they're long hours on the job. I remember in the beginning when he first started teaching, I constantly said, like, are you almost done? Are you almost done lesson planning? Like, what are you doing? You're still working? Like, and it's literally, he would say, it's just kind of never done. And I get that now. Over the years, it was very annoying in the beginning, to be honest, but yeah. But now I love them. But I think that's because I've been made a part of it all. Like, so I hear all the stories every day. Like, I ask how the kids were, field trips or anything in the school. I go in and I'm a part of it. Not a ton, but just every once in a while, like just so I'm familiar with the kids. And I think that helps.
Yeah.
Man, it's that listening to you describe it, I feel like my first year I almost got derailed where, my first job, I started in January 3rd, Monday morning, and I was a band director in a tiny little town. And that year at graduation, I was a band, so the band plays at graduation. And listen, man, like it's a small town. We probably had just a couple hundred kids, and the whole school. I'm like 6 through 12. And so, like in the graduating class, like the top 10% and the valedictorian, same kid. And so, like when we're getting ready, I remember we're getting ready for graduation. I run home. I live in this tiny town. I run home to take a shower. I shower, get cleaned up. I come out and I come into the kitchen of this old trailer I'm living in. And there's a note and there's dishes everywhere. It said, Bowman, we came in. We were hungry. We heard you were in the shower. I hope you're cool with all this. They took all the food. They ate everything and left all the dirty dishes everywhere. And I thought that was like the coolest thing, man. But I went back and told other teachers, like, oh my God, you can't let that happen. What's wrong with you? I thought it was awesome. But over time, I learned that the way I do things in the relationship that I build, my style, just kind of lends itself to being a part of the kid's life, not just the classroom, not just third period for 9 months, but this is a forever thing, man.
Yeah, dude, that's like, look, everyone has boundaries, right? And they should. Like, I don't know that first year teachers, like, I did things in my first year that I don't recommend other people do. And I try not to even glorify that and say, like, like when your uncle tells you how crazy he was when he was younger, and it's like, don't be like me. But it's like, it actually sounds pretty fun. So I try not to like put too much emphasis on it, but really that's what the job has always been for me. It was never just about teaching English. It was about connecting with people and trying to help them be successful. And the way that you help folks be successful is by becoming a real human being and having actual conversations, sharing actual thoughts and feelings. And then what's classroom management's nothing after that, right? It's like,
Right.
The classroom management issues you have are with the kids you can't connect with yet. And, but that's always been the game for us. And so, whether it's teaching kids to drive or going to kids' weddings or to their babies, showers, I'm like, the one dude at the shower that everyone's like, who was that guy? And I'm like, yeah, I was the 9th grade English teacher. So, but that's always been the game for me because it's so exciting. Well, and then because it's long term. If you just think of kids,
right? Like first year, it was like it's building it. We just integrated
those
all
kids
of
still
that
come
stuff.
over.
I know.
Kids
and
are
I
all
made
grown-ups now, but
how many cupcakes did I make for those kids or snacks? Like I came in even for freshmen, like I brought in like Halloween cupcakes and I brought in, whatever the holiday was, I like made something for them just because just because I love them.
That's the
jam
kids. For me. That's all. And that's, why I talk about relationships so much, because I just think it benefits teachers and students and the whole community in school when you do that stuff.
Yeah, man. Looking back, I was talking to a group of teachers today, and as a speaker and I provide professional development, there's this regret that I have. I still think about this dude, and this is probably 8 or 9 years ago. And he asked me one day, and I was doing a workshop, and he said, what, like you talk about the relationship thing, but what if I don't love him? Like I just don't. Like I can't stand him sometimes. And I just don't even like him. And then so what I said was, well, hey man, check this out. And I wrote up on the flip chart, I wrote monster.com. Because back then that's where you go to if you want a new job. And I said, there's your solution, brother. You shouldn't do this. But then I started thinking about it. And now that I'm old and 52 and looking back on it, like I have to admit, when I first meet my kids, I don't have, especially my gangsters, the kind of kids I teach, is I didn't have the emotion of feeling love for them. But what I had was the verb. Like I actively loved them. And I dug into their life and found out their stories and became a part of their reality and world. And because of the verb, then eventually I had the emotion of love. And I think looking back, that's probably what I showed. That, like, dude, if you don't love your kids, you don't know your kids. That's what that means.
100%.
100%. Yeah, you have to. It's like but that takes time and it takes effort and it's hard to do. And look, and maybe not every kid is your jam. Maybe not every kid is going to be the best fit for you, but that's why you have a whole team of teachers at school. And so it's important to build those relationships with other teachers. It doesn't have to be everybody. Like I get along with everyone, but I don't get down with everybody. But my small circle that I'm a part of, it's like we work on that together. We connect with those kids together. And that can help too. So when someone is being a knucklehead and you can't figure it out, it's like you go to your, someone else and say, dude, you got to help me figure this out. Like we got to do this as a team. And that just makes everything more fun too. It's like showing up to a party with like 5 of your best friends instead of by yourself and being all awkward and standing in the corner and you don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So just, everything's better with a group, I think. I don't know.
Hey, Jenni, for you, at what point was it when you realized that, oh my God, this isn't like this isn't like a job. This is like a lifestyle that we're going in on together?
Probably the first year, really. Yeah. Like I said, I we have similar hearts, right? We're both the same, although I could never be a teacher, and stand up in front of the class, although he assures me that I probably could. We have a similar sort of heart. So I think from the beginning, I said, it was my suggestion, I think, to say like, oh, I want to make your kids cupcakes. And he was like, they're like freshmen. They're not going to want anything holiday themed. And I did all that. Like, I love that stuff. Like, that's my jam. But so I think right from the very beginning. And then it was really funny. The next year, his second year teaching was when we had Brody. Yeah. And he was like, no, you have to do it again. He's like, just bring in the baby. Like, just bring Brody into school. And so, like, next year for Halloween, I like brought Brody in his costume, and like we brought cupcakes and things into the classes. So it was from the beginning.
And how much did everyone love that too, though, right? Like,
they talk about it still today.
You're bringing in your wife, you're bringing in your kid. The kids will come in for Halloween in their costumes every single year. It would be like an event. Looked like the Beatles were at the school.
Everybody loved
nuts. And then you're handing out candy and stuff. What you're doing is you're creating space to have an experience together. You're creating space to build relationships. Just like that, just by sharing your life and a little bit of who you are, instead of kids having no idea who you are. Like, you have some secret situation going on the side. So I don't think there's no other way for me to do it anyway. I won't say it's the only way to do it.
I think a lot of us get caught up, early in our career trying to model ourselves after some other teacher because student teaching is so bad and teacher preparation course is so bad and you don't know. And so they just give you the mentor teacher and they go, well, I'm going to try to act like that old lady. And things turn out just horribly wrong. And there's a guy that I helped mentor one year. And this guy, he showed up for our back to school professional development, our few days before the kids come. And he was dynamic and charismatic and just this amazing person. I'm like, dude, you're going to love this job. And he was also teaching English. Dude, you're going to kill it. I'm so happy for those kids. I'm so happy for you. And he's 23. And a couple days into it, I'm like, how's it going? He goes, dude, I hate this. And those kids hate me. And it's he's already broken. And I'm like, well, what happened, man? And so I went and watched him teach. And I'm within 30 seconds, I'm like, who is this guy? This is not the person I just sat next to for 3 days and hung out and had pizza and drank beer with. This is a whole different dude. And so the kids left. I'm like, man, what was that? Like, what are you doing? And that's not even you. And so, and we sat down and here's what we need to do. You need to let go of all that and start over. And tomorrow you're going to spend a whole hour talking about your wife and your baby and what you love to do and your basketball career. And we're going to go through the whole thing. You're going to bring pricks. You're going to do show and tell and bring pictures all about you. And so they get to know who you really are, because that dude that was here for the first 3 days of school is not who you are. And dude, that's when it turned around for that guy.
Yeah, that's hard to do though. I think because, everyone refers to this moment in college when they told you don't smile till like Christmas or whatever it was. That's just such a terrible idea, but it's this fear of like, how much do I let them, right? It's kind of like first date, right? You go on a first date, I think, right? I haven't been on a date in 25 years, but I think the way I remember is like, you don't want to show all your cards. You don't want to tell them exactly who you are. You don't want to let them see like how weird you are or like what you really like to do, because you're trying to be cool or you're trying to like play it safe. And I don't think that, like, if I could go back, it would be game on from day one, which is why like I just, and maybe that's aged too, right? Like I go to any bar by myself. I'm on the road somewhere and I have 3 best friends when I walk out, right? And I don't know anybody when I go in, but it's like, that's just what happens. I just like to connect with people like that. And kids the same way. I'd rather start my class every year and tell kids how great this is going to be. Bro, you guys won the lottery. This is going to be the best year that you've ever had. And I want you to lament that you're not in my class for the next 3 years, right? And I know those teachers and I love them and they're great people, but I want to make it hard for them because I just want to have the best time ever. And so there's no rules talked about, no policies, none of that stuff on the first day of school. It's just, this is how stoked I am. And then here's who I am, right? Like, from side gig stuff to my family, to my kids, here's a picture of my dog. So you look like a real human being. And then you have kids leaving excited on the first day of school instead of like having to listen to every single rule and get every single syllabus and listen to all the procedures and be yelled at all day. It's like, no, not in this class. We're gonna
I hated that going to school.
It sucks.
Every single the exact same way, and it's so boring. By the time you get to 3 classes in here, you don't even pay attention. It's like, just give me your syllabus.
Yeah.
Nope.
And like we've already decided at that point what this class is really all about. We always talk to teachers. But listen, man, if you want to make a difference, you've got to be different. And, that's like scalable. If you want to make a little bit of a difference, just be a little bit different. Easy. If you want to be have this monumental difference in the life of a kid, you've got to be monumentally different and showing up on the first day with the same syllabus and the same schedule. And here's the rules, here's the procedures, here's what we're going to do this year, and goodbye, bell rings. Every kid knows, all right, same plan as last year. Here we go again. This sucks.
Yep. Yeah. And then it sounds like, the kids from Hot for Teacher, where they're just like, yelling at the teacher and throwing things. And it's like, you're going to get the same thing. You're right. But, if you can just shift it and say, nope, I'm stoked. I love my job. Like just telling kids that I actually love my job. And that sounds crazy, right? Because you think they assume it, but I never had a teacher in my life tell me that they liked their job. I never had a teacher in my life tell me that all they wanted was for me to succeed this year. And they would do anything to help me do that. Never, ever, ever. But what other job is like if you went to a lawyer and they were like, that's not what the first thing they told you was like, I think we can win this case. You want to walk out, right? If you have a carpenter that's like, I don't know if we can do this roof. We'll give it our best shot. It's like, no, bro, like I need some confidence in this. So if you're going to school to be educated, if you're sitting at back to school night with parents and the first thing you don't say is, yo, this is going to be the best year you ever had. Like I only want your kid to win. That's all I care about. And that shifts the tone of everything. But no one, like very few people do it. And what I mean by that is like no one I knew growing up ever did that. And so, you're either the teacher or the teacher you always wanted. And I think that's the choice.
Man, I think more than ever, this is a generation where, you have to say the words. Like you have to look them in the eye and articulate it clearly, how much you care, how much you love them, why you're there, what you want for the kids, who I'm working on becoming for you. Like you have to say those words. And I think a lot of teachers, well, they see me working. I'm up here till 6:30 at night. I work all night. They know how hard I work at it. No, man, like they see that, but they see that with everybody. You have to say the words. You have to tell them. And it is critical. Hey, dude, let me ask you a quick question. At what point in your career did you think, man, I'm going to write a book?
Never.
I thought about it for a while, but it was like, you know what it was, man? So I started YouTube like 4 years ago, something like that. And I never thought, I always knew that like I did stuff that worked for me. I knew that I enjoyed my job, but I didn't know that it was so like, that was shareable, that it was anything anybody would want to know about. And then when I started putting out YouTube content, I realized that your extraordinary or your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary, right? So like I post pictures or videos about me having like cereal parties in class because I thought like pizza parties are what everyone does, but if you buy cereal with the least nutritional value and eat it together as a group, like it's game changing. And I would post that, and then I'd have people like hitting me up from all over the world, literally all over the world, like pictures from Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, all over Israel that are like, yo, I had cereal day in my classroom and it was the greatest thing we've done all year. And I'm like, what? Like, all right, well, I'd also do this thing and I do this thing and I do this thing. And then my friend Adam Welcome hit me up one day and he gets on the phone. He's like, bro, because it's what he calls everyone, bro, you got to write a book. And I'm like, yeah, I thought about it. And he's like, no, bro, you got to write a book. And I was like, all right. So then I get the book deal. I write like 2 chapters. I send it to a publisher. They agree to publish it. And then it was game on. And it was like, all right, I got to write a book. And so that's how I didn't not know this early in my career I would be writing a book, but I'm really glad that I did it.
You know, it's interesting, the stuff in our careers that have lined up. So back in my teaching day, we would always, every class, every year we would have cookie day. And what cookie day was, everybody had to bring their favorite cookies, but you had to bring one for everybody. And I would bring the bags. So that we pass a cookie, you take one cookie from everybody's favorite cookies. So in the class, we could lay out, all 37 cookies from the kids in our class, and you could see whose was whose favorite, and you would talk about them and eat them, and then you get a headache. And so it was awesome, man. It was amazing.
Yeah, dude, that's the stuff that kids remember.
Fun and simple.
Forever.
Like,
yep. Cheapest one is we do Top Ramen Day. So those Jones are like $6 for $1, and so all you need is water on those things, and every kid, you're just getting ready for college. It's like, guys, you're gonna eat for 4 years. You'll be eating this and Hot Pockets for 4 years in college. So it's just those little things. But I think the thing that I learned in writing the book was that I thought you had to be, I'm not nationally recognized. I was never teacher of the year. I was, but that school, they took it away. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, it was like this, I never had like any kind of like awards or anything like that. And then when I realized that, most teachers could write a book. Like there's a teacher in every school that's doing something incredible that if the rest of us knew about it, if you were sharing your ideas, we'd all benefit from it. But instead, most teachers are just sitting quietly in their room and they're too overwhelmed with everything else that's going on to have any time to write it. So, but I knew that like I wanted to get that out there and I wanted to be able to create that resource for educators.
Dude, isn't it true? That's like the big secret of professional development that I was talking about with Davico and Asloni is that like everywhere we go, like every school we're in, you walk down the hallway, it is without exception. You walk down the hallway and at some point you're going to see some crazy, heroic, world-class, unbelievable teacher. You think, what? Why am I here? Look at this person. Just have people watch what they do. They're right. There's your answer right there. And those people are everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Like no matter what school I've ever been to or spoken to or done PD at, or you go to like certain conferences and there's just a ton of them. And you're like, dude, do you like have a blog or a book or a YouTube channel? Nope. I just like doing this. And I'm like, that's great. But like the world's missing out because your greatness needs to be out there. So, I didn't write a book because I was the greatest in the world. I wrote a book because I wanted to write a book but I think that not anybody, but I would say that like most teachers have something like that to share. And I just think that it's a gift to the world when they do share that stuff.
Which is why I think they should be on social media, right? Like
100%, man.
Because the more that teachers share, but in an authentic way to them, because a lot of what teacher social media can be is everybody's doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it's like, this sort of homogenized thing instead of being true. But back to your point, how like it feels scary to do that, to put out there like people are gonna like this. Like I do weird stuff in my classroom that works for me, that works with the students I do it with. But I hear folks sometimes I get pushed back on it where they're like, you can't do that to a kid, and I'm like, no, this is hilarious, man. It's like it's awesome when I have when you have inflatable boxing gloves or I'm blowing bubbles, or I have a water pistol that I use like to just like make believe that the ceiling is leaking. It's hilarious and it infuses the day with fun. But not all social media is like that. It is sort of like gotten homogenized, and there of course are exceptions to that. But largely it's like we see what everyone else is doing and then we do it, and then teachers do the same thing. Dude, do something different, man. Like if every band played the same music, that would get real boring real quick. So it's like, you got to branch out.
Hey man, for those people that have ordered the book or have yet to read the book, I highly recommend you watch at least a couple of hours of CJ's YouTube channel. That way, when you read the book, you can hear his Jersey accent in your head as you're going through it, because that really, and the way when he says the F word, when you read the F word, you can make it sound like he's saying the F word. It's really effective. And so one of my favorites is, I gotta tell you, I know it's a letter to a young teacher at the end, but I really wish like every teacher would read this at the beginning of every year, just to remind them, when they show up for school, and here's what you're not going to find in the classroom, and this is what isn't going to happen. Because I think as educators, for those teachers that had that idyllic upbringing and two parents and both had jobs, and they both parents went to college, and they wrote you're a champion on their napkin that they made in their lunch that day. Those kids, they're just not there. You're gonna have one in the classroom maybe. They became teachers oftentimes because they had that childhood. And I think so many are shocked when they stand in front of the class on the first day.
Yeah. And it's like, look, I think not to make it overly, like, I don't want to make this overly dramatic, but teaching is a lot of times like getting used to the taste of your own blood. It's getting punched in the mouth and then you keep going back, but that's, but you think about when I get kids in 9th grade.
Wait, I just want to say that makes teaching so enticing sounding.
It does. But it's not a hard one. It's not an easy one gig, right? So
Yeah,
you watched all the movies, you read all the books, and it sounded magical. And then you show up and you think the kids are going to be waiting there like, thank God, like someone that cares showed up. No. There's been lots of people that have cared that showed up before, but the system is set up in such a way that it does not make it optimal for teachers. It doesn't make it optimal for kids. It's I heard someone one time say that if Rip Van Winkle came back after 100 years, like the school system in 2020 is the only thing that he would recognize, right? We're still sitting in rows. We're still handing out worksheets. We're still told speak when spoken to and then are never spoken to. It's like it's the same thing. So the game is not rigged to win. But when you stick around, when you realize that you can make a difference, when you realize that kids are, when we're planting seeds and knowing that some seeds grow real quick and some seeds, bro, you're 4 or 5 years in before somebody is like, all right, I'll be real with you. But that's the game every time. And then it's like Sisyphus's rock, right? Like you roll that rock all the way to the top of the hill and then end of the year, rock rolls all the way back down. You got to push that thing back up again every year. It's starting over from scratch. But that's a game, man. That's what we signed up for.
Yeah. And man, what I love is when you talk about that kid that is sitting in the back of the class just waiting, like see how long it takes for you to break, because that kid knows that it's just a matter of time and you're going to break, because they have hundreds of examples. They have this inventory of evidence that they all break. And for me, man, like that when I realized for teaching, that's when teaching begins. So my whole theory is I want to be the one that pushes past the point where everyone else gave up. And it's in that moment that teaching begins. So I'm trying to push to the starting line. And when I feel it, like I feel myself, this is the point where I would cry and I would go in the hallway and I would want to quit and start looking for another job. I'm there. This is where everybody else quit. Now let's teach. Now let's begin. Like for me, instead of it triggering frustration and anger, like now it triggers excitement because this is where everybody else quit. I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that's everything in life, right? Like that's a perfect metaphor for life, is like if you have to be prepared in anything. Seth Godin talks about the dip and how like you have to be prepared because in anything you're going to do, there's going to be a dip. That's why gyms are full in January, and it sucks because I gotta like wait for a treadmill, which is like the most ridiculous thing in the world. And then 2 weeks later, I have my choice of 14 treadmills. Like Planet Fitness becomes like a warehouse of purple workout equipment, and it's like me and one other dude there because it just empties out, right? So, but you have to be prepared for the dip. But because when you ride through that, you get to come out the other side, and when you come out the other side, that's where the magic is, man. That's where the connections are. That's where the lifelong connections with students are. And you really feel like you're actually doing something at that point.
Yeah, man. And what I also love is when you talk about, letting these kids know that they're not broken, man. Like they're perfect. There's this buddy of mine and he's a principal, and they always talked in their school about letting kids know that they call it VLC, that they're valuable, that they're loved, and they're complete. You're fine, man. The way you showed when you stepped into this high school, everything you need is already in there. We're just trying to flip the light on so you can see all that's there. And rather than trying to, I think as a young teacher, I definitely got caught up like thinking I needed to fix kids rather than this kid is amazing. This kid is perfect just as they are. We just got to give the kid enough courage to be who they are.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I think that kids are more afraid. We talk about this a lot. People are more afraid in general, and our students are no different, of really succeeding. Like if you really succeeded, and what are you going to do when you make more money than your parents do combined? What are you going to do when you're the first person to graduate from high school? What are you going to do with the awkwardness of being the first person to graduate from college, to have a master's, to have a doctorate, to own your own home, to own multiple homes, to live the life you always dreamed of? That's a lot of responsibility, and
it's scary,
and it's terrifying for students. But you're right, letting kids know that you are, I think Mr. Rogers used to say that you are perfect the way that you are, even if nothing about you ever changes. And the beauty in that is letting kids know, now look, you're wonderful. your behavior sucks. Your attitude right now is not going to work, right? But you're great. That's why I'm still doing this. But I'm not doing this because you just cursed at me. I'm not doing this because you won't do your homework. I'm not doing this because I think I'm going to win with you. Because you're right. Like, we can't fix kids, right? And especially when you don't come from, like, I come from a neighborhood that was like an all-white neighborhood in New Jersey. It looked more like the movie Pleasantville or Leave It to Beaver. Like, we didn't lock our doors. I didn't have to put my bike away at night. No one was going to steal it. But now I teach in a neighborhood where it's not like that. And I've learned that it is my attention, not my advice, that can really help students. It is sitting with kids in their most vulnerable times and just being there. And like not saying like, hey, it'll all get better, or like there's every cloud is a silver lining. It's like no one wants to hear that anyway, right? That, that's one thing I've learned from being married for a long time is like, dude, just sometimes just shut up. Sometimes my wife just wants to tell me how she feels and not have me say, well, come on, it's not that bad. Like that just
then I
gets
get mad at you for trying to fix it.
Exactly. And then you just kind of
Can you just let me be pissed?
just drift out of the scene after that one. But yeah, attention over advice every day.
Yeah. And then, that whole fixing thing that Jen brought up, like that is, I think you looking back as a young teacher, I was looking for the answer. What's the tool? How can I fix this? How do I do, rather than, hey man, listen, they're all different. And what worked today for that one kid is going to work tomorrow for that same kid, let alone anybody else. And like, that's the art of teaching. Like, how do we be, it's not, there's no recipe, there's no formula, that's the art of it, is how can I figure out in the moment how I can most influence this kid most effectively for right now that might not work tomorrow. And that's the big journey of this career.
100%. I have this part in the book that I talk about teaching like a DJ. And it's like, if DJing wasn't an art, right? You could just play a playlist at your wedding and everyone would dance the whole time and it would be great. But you don't know who your audience is. You don't know what they like, what they don't like, what's going to get everyone on the dance floor. But when you're playing a song at a wedding and it clears the dance floor, bro, what are you going to do? Let that Journey jam like ring all the way out to the end while everyone's at the bar? You got to switch it up and bring it back because it's going to be different every single year. And if you think back, if anyone watching this thinks back to when they were in high school, things are only cool, right? For us, bands were the coolest when no one knew them. When everyone figured out who the Pixies were or who Nirvana was or any of that, it was like, it just immediately it was like, oh, you like them? Bro, not cool anymore. Yeah, it's like, so it's pop culture is always changing. Hip hop culture is always changing because you don't want everyone to know. And so kids are always going to shift. The movies that you referenced last year, it's like, you can't do that anymore. The video games, the music, the celebrities, the YouTubers, it's all changing all the time. And you have to be willing to step into that world with kids so that you can change it up and be fresh for them.
Hey man, real quick, I'm wondering, this is, I've asked, like, this people ask me a lot, is going this year, we have a lot of new teachers going out there this year that are about to meet their classes for the first time online.
Yeah.
I mean, I is there anything in your mind, like where would you, if you had the teacher across the hall and we're about to Zoom and you're the mentor teacher and they're 22 about to meet their kids for the first time online, like where do you even begin with that kid?
I think intent wins the day. And so when students know that what your intentions are and that, look, I recognize this is not optimal. I am right now sitting in my laundry room that all of a sudden became my office, but on the other side of this camera is like clean laundry hanging up and board games and soccer balls and stuff. Like this is where I live now, is on my side of the laundry room. But it's not optimal, but guess what? We're doing it together. Guess what? I'm going to try and make the greatest class I ever can anyway, because I can't pretend that school was ever a perfect fit anyway, right? 37 kids in the class, right? There's not enough desks for everyone, and the desks that you have, some of them are broken. No one brings a pencil. Everyone's late all the time. There's always stuff. We just got used to dealing with that madness, right? You got used to that fight. Now the fight has just shifted. And if education is only ever about students, how are you going to show up for students, right? If that's your focus, if that's your why, then it doesn't matter if you're teaching through a telephone. You could have cans and string, man. You're going to figure out a way to do it because that's the game that you signed up for. And it's not the best, but it won't last forever either. So it's like thinking about the stresses that students are going through, the fact that they haven't seen their friends, like, you know, ultimately being in America, and I won't say that really exclusively this, but like being in America in 2020 and quarantining, it's not the worst thing ever, man. I take a trip to BJ's and I have Netflix and internet. It's not the worst thing that ever happened to me.
But not everybody has that.
No, not everyone does. And so, and a lot of my students don't. A lot of my students are stuck in their house. They live in a row home. They can't leave the house. They live with their grandma who has an immune, some sort of like immune I talk too fast for my own good sometimes. A compromised immune system, and they can't leave the house because they're afraid that they're going to get their grandma sick. Like, how are you going to show up for those kids? And so, have fun is what I tell people all the time. Like, what are you going to do? Because everyone's trying to figure this out, right? No, all the vet teachers are no better off than you are at this point. So show up, get a green screen for $6 on Amazon, have fun with your lessons, try and trim the fat, and don't have a 45-minute online lesson. Have a 6-minute online lesson. That's the greatest thing ever, because the kids are all wrapped up in YouTube culture anyway. So it's like anything over 6 minutes is like, oh my God, this is so long. Like, why is this? You know, it's
need to be like a TikTok link.
It's TikTok culture.
Yeah.
It's Vine culture, and have some fun with it.
I think it's
you know,
also
one of the coolest things.
New teachers. I think it's important to remind those new teachers that you still have to get to know your students, and I think you can still do that through a computer screen. I don't think it has to be in class. I think I hear a lot of people say that they're worried about how do you do that? How do you do that? And it's like, well,
but why? You know.
Wait, why what?
How do kids know, like, why would they buy into you through a computer screen?
I don't know. You're putting
trick question. I am.
Don't
trick question. Sorry.
Answer it yourself.
Just because we've talked about this. It's because kids know someone who's a phony, right? Like in the classroom. They know someone who's like full of crap, and they know someone who's like, dude, I get it. It sucks. Try and make the best of it anyway. When we were broke and my kids we ate peanut butter and jelly for my first year teaching. I made $31,000 a year, which in New Jersey is nothing. Like that is not enough to pay your mortgage with. And we didn't get paid in the summer. So we ate P&J for like multiple meals a day. So I started getting out cookie cutters, and I'm like, who wants a snowman for lunch? And like, hell yeah, I want a snowman. Oh, can we have snowflakes for lunch? And I'm like, we can have snowflakes for lunch. And it was like, just trying to repackage the same stuff, but in like a more creative way. And my kids loved it, you know?
Yeah.
That was the game.
You know, when this whole thing first started back in, I guess it was March, and then we're in April, I would stream into classes and talk to kids and teachers. And a teacher asked me if I would talk to the class. And I said, sure. And so we're setting up, and the kids are about to get on there, and it's just me and her. And I said, hey, real quick, before these kids join the class, what do you guys usually do right now? And it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And she goes like, I want to know what the lesson was, the content. And she goes, oh, we just have breakfast first. And I went, what? She goes, yeah, we just have breakfast. I went, oh my God, finally I met one here. All right, now we got a teacher. Yeah. And all the screen fills up with all the boxes, and one kid's brushing his teeth. One kid is eating Pop-Tarts. I mean, it was, they're just getting ready for school. And I went, this is it. This is why that on this class and this screen, I can count 27 kids. And then I look at my son's screen from his class, and he's got 3, him and 2 friends and 1 teacher that showed up for that thing. Because this is a family. We're eating breakfast together, and we're getting ready for school together. You know, one kid's still, you know, when you get the lights off in his room, and he's looking out from the blanket, you know, out of his eye like this, you know, with his phone. I said, this is like a real family.
Yeah, it's community. You're building community, and I think that kids get used to that, and so to just cut that off in March, that was dangerous for kids. Kids were, you know, that the social emotional well-being of children is tanking at that point. So it's like, how can we create a safe space instead of like being robots on Zoom? It's like, create a safe space where kids can connect and find a little bit of success today. That's the name of the game. That was it.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think when for you guys, tell me what your back to school plan is for the school that you're at.
No one really knows because it's still an ongoing conversation. But what that's supposed to look like is students come in 2 days a week, they're off 3 days, or they're doing virtual learning 3 days a week, but teachers would be required to be there 4 days a week, and we kind of like split the schedule. So the kids are coming in later, they're leaving earlier. Everybody, but the problem is everyone's got a mask on, a face shield, and in classrooms like mine where it's super crowded, everyone has plexiglass box around them. So I just bought my first dishwasher the other night. I'm at Home Depot. I got a mask on. The guy's got a mask on, and there's plexiglass. We're grown-ups, right? I'm not shy. We have this plastic thing between us, and I'm like yelling that, like, he's like, "Do you want it delivered?" And I'm like, "Yes," because I can't reach your lips. There's all these barriers in between. You put a student that's a freshman that wants to be cool, that wants to mumble every single thing that they're saying. Bro, I don't know one thing you're saying right now. It's like, what are we really doing here right now? This is, it's like you just made the game 100 times harder. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's, we'll see. I mean, if that's the job, it's the job. But like, I don't know what that's going to look like for real.
Yeah, and then you guys, for your own kids going back, what's
we homeschool.
Really?
Last year was the first year that we decided to homeschool, and it was kind of a blessing, right? Like who knew all this was going to happen and schools were going to close in March. So our son has pretty severe dyslexia, and he just wasn't able to get the remediation that he needed within the school district, and so we made the decision to finally pull him, and last year was the first year. So they're not going to go back again this year.
Nope.
So yeah, we're going to sit at our dining room table. That's about what we got.
No way. It has to be fair. You're getting masks, face shields, plexiglass walls around desks. That's what we're doing in the house. Okay.
Our kids are still out. It wouldn't even be a barrier that we'd still like, oh my God, you're still out. Like, it's still like a megaphone.
And I'm really thankful. We went to the zoo yesterday, I think it was, and the Philadelphia Zoo, you're required to wear a mask, even though it's all outside. Like they closed the indoor exhibits.
And there's a limited number of people that are in there.
Yeah. So it was great, but my kids had to wear a mask, and it was the first time that they've ever had to wear a mask because they haven't gone out. I don't take them to stores or anything like that, but it was the first time that they've had to wear a mask for an extended period of time, and they hated it. Like they really, really hated it and struggled with it.
It was cool for 10 minutes, and then they were like, oh, I can't breathe. I'm so hot. It's hurting my ears. You're going to put kids in a classroom for 8 hours a day like that? So
we had a whole conversation with the kids about, like, could you imagine going back to school and having to wear these sort of things like all day in the classroom? And they could not. So I'm nervous to hear how that's going to work out for all the different teachers with kiddos in their class. It's scary.
Yeah, especially kids with sensory issues or like that are, maybe on the spectrum or something like that are just, having extra difficulty. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, for me, man, what I have realized, there's so many kids are right there on edge anyway, in a typical, normal, safe environment where they're comfortable and they know what to expect, and they're already on edge. And I just can't imagine just limiting the breathing and the oxygen for the kid. I mean, that's such a huge thing. And I just really, really worry. I know for here, what we're doing in Houston, they mandated, which is interesting here, man, a lot of counties, the judges have taken, because in a county here, there could be tons of school districts in a single county, and the judges have taken it out of the hands of superintendents, fortunately. And so they don't have to make the decision. They say, we're not starting school until September 8th. We're going to revisit this. So what we're doing in Houston is on September 8th, it goes back full online, 100%. And then October 16th, kids can have a choice of online or in person. And then parents will redecide every month if they want to send a kid to school or stay home.
That's how our local district is working it. They haven't delayed, but we're East Coast, so we don't start until September anyway. The local school district here is the same thing. You have to sign up. They gave an option. So you can either do remote learning, but that's literally, they said it's going to be 7 hours on a computer. Like everything is going to be exactly like it is in the classroom. I feel for teachers because that's, an in-person lesson, I imagine is different than, online lesson. And so that a lot of extra work for teachers, and even wearing a mask all day. Gosh, God bless them. I can't imagine. Like, I hate when I have to go out in a mask for 2 hours.
Yeah, to go food shopping, right? But and it's a rock and a hard place, right? Because the counter argument to that is, well, what about parents? Parents can't work. They can't go and do the things that they need to do because they usually have their kids in school. And that is a valid argument. But it's like, if these are the two choices that we get to make, it's like, these choices both suck. Like, you're offering me two dinner choices that I do not want to eat. So I don't want to eat ramen or a Hot Pocket because one just burns my mouth and is barely filling. So it's like to have folks just arguing over these two things. It's like, no, I don't want to do either one of those. I want to know, where are the SpaceX people right now? Can the SpaceX people decide? Where are the people that designed? Where's Elon Musk right now? Can this gentleman please pipe in and have some alternate idea that we do? Because that's the only way that we win. If we just make these two awful choices that teachers have to make, or districts have to make, or parents have to make, it's like, dude, no one's winning.
It's terrible.
Like this. So what happens is, you know what? Poor kids are the ones that are going to end up getting sick because their families have to work. They have to hustle and grind every day. They don't have the alternative, right? We are blessed to be able to say, like, no, my wife can stay home. My kids can stay home. That is a blessing that we have, a privilege that we have, but not everybody has that. And I get it.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what, this is, if nothing else, for me, seeing what has happened with schools and teachers and distance and remote learning, it has really made it obvious which teachers have built a relationship and which teachers struggled at it, because those that have built a relationship, it's almost as if from a distance, somehow it even went to another level. It's like they worked even harder at it. And I have just seen the coolest stuff happen around the nation with those teachers. And I'm just so thankful that kids have people like that in their lives, especially during this time of COVID. And then, all the challenges in our society at this point. I'm just glad they have that one person who loves them relentlessly through all of this.
Yeah, it's kind of feels like you're in the A-Team, right? And you're at that end scene where they're like, all right, we have some duct tape, a fly swatter, and a spatula. Go. It was like, and then they made it happen, right? So
that shows that teachers are amazing.
It does, and I think that it has to be. You're right that those teachers that I know that I work with, because I'm not one of a kind in my school, right? There are many people that are doing really amazing stuff. When you kept making deposits into students all year long, COVID hit, and it was like, are kids coming in your class? Are they handing in your work? Of course they are, because I've been putting work in all year. Now I'm making withdrawals on that stuff. I'm calling dudes up like, bro, you got to show up to my class. You need to pass. You're not allowed to not pass my class. What do we need to do this? But you can have those real conversations because those relationships were already there. And now going into this year, it's going to be different because, especially teaching freshmen, I have all the new kids, so I don't know what that is. And even in school, I mean, this, like you live off your reputation. Like when the older guys are going, yo, don't give Reynolds a problem because that's my guy. And the younger guys are like, you get down with the captain of the football team, 100%, bro. That's like my number one dude. And so you get to live off of that. Now I'm like, I don't know what
you're like first year teacher status.
To some extent, but I have more confidence, I think.
Yeah.
Right. I think education is confidence game to begin with. And so when you get that confidence, you got some sauce to walk in there with. You feel like you can handle it.
Yeah. Well, either way, man, it is going to be it's going to be interesting. And here's what I know. Here's what I keep going back to is in my experience in my life, the most challenging, the most devastatingly hard things when that wave is like at the trough of the wave. What I know is on the other side is this good crest at the top of the wave to come. The positives are going to be directly proportional with how challenging and how difficult things were. And so, I don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, it is going to be amazing for teachers and kids in schools. And I can't wait. Yeah,
I think of, and I don't want to draw this direct correlation, but I'm just thinking about, we were watching Mad Men recently. I never watched the show, and I just watched it last year. And there was this difference between like what would have been like my grandfather's generation, right, which came out of World War II, went through the Great Depression, right, and that built a certain kind of human being. And then when you're watching the show and it's like their kids were like hippies and they're like, no, we don't need money. And like, we're going to live on a farm with dirty feet all the time. And their parents are just like, no, like where's your grit? Where is your stick to itness? And I keep talking to students. I'm like, I don't want to draw that direct comparison to like that generation to this generation. But if you persevere, right, you get through anything in your life, you have a choice. It's either going to beat you down or it's going to build you up, and it's going to make you into a person that knows what it was like. You don't take things for granted. I heard a really great interview with Dr. Jane Goodall, right? Am I saying her name right? She was on the Tim Ferriss show, and she was saying like growing up during World War II in London, she's like, a square of chocolate was like the greatest thing ever. Like being able to like go outside for a little bit of time and like be on the grass was amazing because you weren't allowed, because you were sheltered all the time because of the bombings. And she said that made her into a better human being, having gone through that. And so I think that if we live through this and we do find the positive, then I think our students win on a level that's going to really, really bless them.
I love it. It's true, man. Hey, listen.
Yeah.
Level to what teachers are even having to do to work out of the trauma that, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Man, I love it. Thank you so much for being on tonight, man. The Maiden Voyage, the episode, CJ Reynolds and Jen, the brain, the brawn, the beauty behind the brand. That's the slogan right there, man.
That's the second book. That's her. That'll be her book when it comes out. It'll be like the true story of what really.
Well, I could write that one.
If you really knew.
Right.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Bro, thanks man. Thanks for what you're doing.